6 p.m. We'll call this special meeting to order. Please rise for a short invocation. Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I see all are present, minus the mayor who's out of town. I entertain a motion to excuse the mayor.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. I entertain a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Make that motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. One, thank you all for showing up for tonight's special meeting. We are here to this current business is to discuss the fire service and presentation by City Administrator, Finance Officer, and Mike Gantz, our fire service consultant. I will pass this on to Spencer.
Yeah. I've got the mic police here to make sure I'm talking into a working mic. Just to get us started a little bit, let me share my screen. First of all, at our last meeting, the City Council expressed a desire to hold another special meeting this week just so we can start expediting our conversations with the Adams County Fire District. I reached out to their fire chief the next morning, and their three board members weren't available on Thursday, so it just wasn't doable. However, and so at that time I asked Tom to reach out to them and see when they're next available, and he was going to get back to me as soon as they can have a special meeting and let us know when that can be. I was hoping for next week sometime, so hopefully that's the case. Until then, at our last meeting, the City Council had some discussions and wanted some more information, and so I thought, well, let's do a couple of things tonight. This will still be really useful tonight, I believe. I wanted to do a couple of things. One is go over the budget. I've heard a couple of questions about the budget, and so I wanted to go over the preliminary budget, discuss that a little bit. We had some discussion about it in our fire committee, and there are some suggestions at that meeting that I want to bring up also tonight. So first, let's talk a little bit about the fire budget. And then secondly, we have Mike Gantz here in the audience, and he's our consultant that's been helping us walk through this, create a fire department of our own or annex, and I thought that would be very valuable for us to hear from him. And then, so a little bit later this evening, he'll give us kind of a once-over from his perspective and walk us through that. Then he'll be available for questions, and we can shoot things back and forth. Right before I talk about budget, though, I want to bring to your attention a couple of things that are posted on the docket for this evening. The first one here is finance. This is one I'm going to go into here in just a sec. We have a few other items, though, and they're each under their own category. The first, fire apparatus report. This is from the gentleman that we hired to look down at the building and the equipment down at the fire hall and give a brief overview of that. These are his reports. The Othello fire startup. This is the report issued to us by Mike Gantz. Adams County 5 master plan. This is a plan that they obtained from their consultant that did a study for them about a year ago-ish. Then 5-year, this is our current fire contract with the fire district, between the city and the fire district. And then here are just a couple of links, and these might be useful for you. This first one is a link to MRSC. And it's a link to their MRSC stands for Municipal Research and Services Center, and they provide a lot of help to municipalities all around the state. A lot of legal help and a lot of guidance on a lot of different topics. This is a link to a page specific to fire services, so that might be useful. And these last two are part 1 and part 2 of a meeting on August 5th of last year. This is where the of 24, sorry, so not last year, the year before. This is where the fire district's consultant from ESCI did a presentation to council, and they had a PowerPoint. And we don't have a copy of that PowerPoint. I reached out to Tom this morning. He didn't have a copy, but we have it on that video there. So you have that also. To start us off tonight, I want to talk just a little bit about the budget here. Make it bigger. Let's see. Get rid of this. Well, that one. Okay, good. This is a preliminary budget that we created last year to fund the fire department this year. And there are a couple of different components in here that I want to make you aware of. They're just these 2 pages. The very bottom number here is 1.2, almost 1.3 million. This is for the fire services, for everything. Total budget for fire in 26. Is that big enough? I can make it a little bit bigger. How's that? So that's almost 1.3 right there. I want to go into just a couple of things that make this up. First of all, here's 30,000 up here. This is some LEF, some expenses that we have for some retired LEF guys. That is going to stay there. It's been there for ages, as you can see, going back for years. We pay, well, that's for LEF, not necessarily for the operation of our fire department. So in our fire department, when we created this budget using a couple of other budgets to use as comps as a starting point. And I want you to know there are some guesses in this budget. We're starting up a new department. Of course, there are some guesses, and we need to make some assumptions. We use the city of Ephrata as a comp to use. We use the fire department's budget as a comp to use, and then we used Mike Gans to help us build this budget. So we tried to make it as realistic as possible. One of the things that we did, we had to decide on our level of service. And we patterned that after the city of Ephrata, where they have a fire chief and an assistant fire chief and an office admin. And here we have those 2 salaries. And then we were going to use a part-time position for the admin. Our thinking there was we have a lot of other services that the city offers some things that we won't need to duplicate. We already have finance and AP, and we already have some of these things already taken care of. So those are things that our fire secretary wouldn't have to do. And this is one of the items that I want to come back to or the staffing issue, because that raised a question in our fire committee. So I'll come back to that here in just a sec. I want to go over just a couple of things here. In yellow, this is our current contract with Adams County Fire District, $276,000, and that dollar amount covers the first 4 months of the year through the end of April. And this number is based on, it might be a little bit more than that, 286, maybe 290, and there's somewhere. This number was built based on an early estimate I got from the assessor's office when we're building the budget. So today we have better numbers, but I wanted to give you what we're using to build the budget last fall. So there's 276,000 there. The rest of these items, so we have the salaries up here and benefit items up here. We come down, we have office and operating. We have a whole series of studies or inspections and all kinds of things. You can look down the side here and inspections, Lexipool, Target Solutions, different training, things that we'll need to have as operating costs moving forward. And those continue at the top of the next page. There's I Spy and pump testing, various testing that we'll need to do every year. And so if we look at the total operations there, that's 950. That 950 includes, though, the Adams County Fire 5. And so that's not, that expense there isn't an ongoing expense. If we were to create our own department, that's not an ongoing expense that we'd realize. So that's the 950. And then we also have another $300,000 worth of initial capital startup things. What this doesn't include is the 1.27, or is it 1.37, the grant that we received for equipment and for building and for those kinds of things. That's off to the side. So to give, just to kind of give a sense of where this falls in relation to the 1.2 million that we would be paying to the fire district, this year's cost at least, if we were to pay the 90 cents per $1,000 of valuation. That's 1.2 million. I want to get down to, let's see, we have our 950,000 here. Well, let's just start with our 1.2, almost 1.3 million here. I'm going to call it 1.2. Well, I should probably call it 1.3. But if we subtract the $300,000 in capital here, and we also subtract the current contract for this year, that's 500 and almost 600,000. And I also want to subtract the left payments. That's 30,000 up here. So that's about $800,000 worth of expenses that aren't operating expenses. Well, let's just look
Can you
at
go
this.
over that number again? What is that again?
This 950?
Yeah.
This 950 is the total of the operating budget for the fire department. That's including our staff and our testing that we would have to have, our operating expenses. But it also includes the current contract for Adams Fire 5. So let's take that 950 and we subtract the Adams County Fire 5. We're left with about 600,000, about 700,000.
Total of the above?
That's the total of all these numbers up here through this item up here.
Okay.
Not including this up here.
Right. Okay.
So there's $650,000. We have $300,000 worth of capital there. That would move us up to $950,000. The Finance Committee also expressed an interest in having a different level of service rather than these 2.5 personnel here. Maybe adding another few $100,000 to that, to our operating cost to fund those positions. Those positions would then essentially be covered by this payment, this 276 that we're currently paying the fire district that we wouldn't, be paying in the future. So for us to add another couple of positions to the fire district and to maintain our $300,000 worth of capital expenses every year, either purchasing with that 300 or putting that 300 away, that would bring us to about our $1.2 million that we're currently being asked in the fire district for fire services in a package. That's a lot of information and a lot of numbers. If you have some specific questions, we can kind of shoot some of those things back and forth this time.
In my mind, this does not include any set aside for future purchases of fire trucks.
So, right. So here, this year we have a number of capital purchases that we'd be making to the tune of $300,000. Our idea is we wouldn't have to purchase those items every year for $300,000. Once we have them, we have that equipment. Then the next year after that, we can either purchase more equipment with that $300,000, or we can start socking that money away. But that's the $300,000 that I was talking about.
So my question revolves around volunteers and the budgetary hold for that.
Right.
55,000?
Yep.
Is that, what is that based on? That number seems a little low to me.
Yeah, so we based that off of just those other three things that I mentioned at the beginning of our conversation. I looked at our current fire, their budget, and I looked at Ephrata's budget, and then I had a conversation with Mike Gans.
And that
we
was,
thought, well,
that was kind of right in that space.
as a ballpark.
So how many volunteers would that get us?
Well, we would want as many volunteers as we can have. This would be, depending on how many volunteers show up to training and to fires, those kinds of things. I don't know if it's a specific number. I'm not sure how I could get a specific number because I'm not sure, sorry.
So with that 55, you can't tell how many volunteers you could pay with that? That's really what my question is.
Okay, here, maybe just
If we
Mike,
got
want to take
opportunity
that
for Mr.
question?
Gantz to come
I
up and start.
can inform you too. For the county, they have, what we're doing now is a budget of, say, 50,000, I don't know what it is.
Sure.
And every time you respond, it's a point system. And
That's
for
very
a fire,
common
you get
with-
so many points.
Yep.
And so they take the total points, and each fire department or firefighter, volunteer firefighter, has those points, and the points are divided into the 50,000. So they never go over or under budget. It's just a matter of how much volunteers get paid. And
Okay.
it's well under minimum wage.
It's just a stipend to
That's
show
how,
up.
yes, it's a stipend system.
Mr. Gantz.
Mayor and council, that's exactly right. And that's how that was, and I believe it was based on about 20 volunteers. And again, it was mirrored in terms of currently what Adams 5 is doing. And it's exactly as described there. It's a pool. You put it in there, and then you take the number of calls and training, and you assign a point value to that. And then at the end of the year, those points are divided into that budget, and then that's how much each one of those points is worth. It's not pay, it's a stipend, because you're talking about volunteers. And there's a real critical distinction between volunteers and part-paid employees, and that's why the point system works that way. So that budget there, as I recall, was about 20 volunteers. It was, and there was consideration for what those other departments were doing with their fund there to make it very similar for a similar-sized department.
I have another question. When I look at this budget and what we are facing, I also look at, is it ever done that people dedicate funds for recruitment? And where would that apply there, or is that just not done?
This was a basic budget of setting up a fire department, and so we, basically looked at what the city's desire for a staffing level was. Some of that was paid chief, assistant chief, and then, predominantly the volunteers. In terms of recruitment, some of that would, so like for the fire chief, there was a recruitment process that was in place, and that had a cost to it. I don't know that we put a specific budget in there for recruitment. The bulk of it is volunteers, those are community members, and, that would be through Facebook, city resources, those kind of things, so.
I imagine that would look like our current recruitment for other positions. Or is that kind of what, sorry, I need to be closer.
Well, I mean, it's become kind of common practice now that you see signing bonuses and items like that. And I mean, in our situation with starting one, timing, and all that, I just wonder if that would be in the plan. I didn't read that anywhere as far as when I read through this as much as I could for recruitment and recruitment strategies. So in the modern age, it almost seems like kind of a normal process, and I didn't know how that would potentially fit into budget.
On the west side, for paid firefighters, it's pretty common to have signing
I would
bonuses. And retention bonuses, because it's that much demand. Not so much on this side of the mountains, and specifically for volunteers. It doesn't mean that you couldn't come up with some type of incentive program to do that. we didn't get to that stage where it was going to be a problem or not, right? So it's certainly a possibility. You can build your budget however you want. We were trying to do it, what are the basic elements of putting this department together, and comparing that to a couple other similar sized departments and what the available budget was.
So, a year one budget. A year
Yes.
one budget.
Yes, sir. Year one budget.
There's 20,000 for benefits for volunteers. What's the benefits?
So here, yeah, we have the 36 for the chief, the assistant chief, secretary, and volunteers. You know, we wouldn't have, I don't know that we would have specific benefits for volunteers.
I think you have to pay like labor industry
Individual
monies.
insurance.
Oh, maybe, yeah.
Individual insurance.
Sorry, that was a
Maintaining
while
the volunteer
ago.
cadre.
There may be some Board of Volunteer Firefighter costs there too. So,
Dues and things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
Currently, through the Board of Volunteer Firefighters, the state, they provide a pension. And at least with the county, it's like $90 a year or something, and the volunteers out of pocket actually pay half of that, and the county pays the other half. So if we want to continue that pension for the city volunteers, that would be part of that.
I don't think you would have you may not have the option of not doing that. I think that's pretty universal.
Oh, that might be,
That's-
yeah.
Okay.
I had a question kind of off of topic a little bit from this section of the budget. Down at the bottom, we have turnout gear at 125,000. How much does turnout gear for one firefighter cost?
About $4,500 to $5,000
So
per
that
person per set.
per set.
Yes.
So that's gonna get us how many turnout gear? Sorry,
20,
5-ish.
25-ish?
Yep. Yeah, so we figured again about 20 volunteers, and then you have some paid staff there, and then you also have to figure in. Ideally, every department would like to have a second set of bunker gear for each person because of the size. That's expensive.
Right.
So the alternative to that is buying some extra sets that are generic sizes. It's not the best, but in terms of especially starting up, I think that's kind of how we geared that. A primary set for each individual and maybe a couple of, because if they go on a call and that gear gets contaminated, there's what they call a washer extractor in the station, and sometimes you can launder it at the station, but in other cases, it may have to go out. And even if you launder at the station, sometimes it has to dry for a couple of days. You can't go out on a soaking, wet. Primarily, they each have their own set, but then some spare sets. And then long-term down the road, you'd like to have a second set, but it's expensive. So,
With the county, we actually have two sets. We have the structure fire gear, and then we have a separate brush fire gear, which is a whole different set of boots and lighter weight bunkers and.
But that brush fire set can't be used on a interior structure fire, so that's why you have to have a couple extra turnout gear sets.
I don't know that we need a brush set for the city. We'd have to determine that.
You can use your turnout gear for fighting brush fires for up to 1 hour. So a lot of cities, that helps in that regard. But if it goes longer than that, then you need to have brush gear. Plus the fact if they go outside the city limits, or if certainly on deployments or something like that, they would need brush gear. But most agencies have both.
Back up to your yellow part. This is kind of a sidebar, but I want to advise everybody. You see the rates there that we pay to Adams County Fire District, and that was based on 65 cents per thousand assessed value. And you see where it goes from 44,000 to 759,000. That's where things kind of blew up. And that's because, it wasn't because the rate changed, but the assessed value went way up in the city. And I have, talking to the Adams County 5, does it cost more to fight fire at my house if it's valued at $300,000 or $400,000? And they say, well, it costs more because of the expansion. So we go round and round about that, is that legit number, that it should have went up that high? Does it really cost incrementally that much more for the new construction?
But I think it also goes hand in hand with the cost of living. Everything goes up.
Yeah, but that's a lot.
I hear what you're saying,
right. So
$315,000.
somewhere in the middle is where we need to get to, is my opinion.
That's the way we had the contract to negotiate it.
It's a future discussion about numbers.
Absolutely. I just wanted to have people look at those numbers, why it went all askew.
All right.
Thank you. Councilman Spore, I really, appreciate you pointing that out, but I think it was that change in assessment and that amount that got us on this path in the first place, as to looking at this situation and where we go with it and ways to resolve it. And I think that's a little bit of the problem that went sideways as well. But I appreciate you bringing that up as well.
So I'd like to bring the conversation back to Mr. Gantz, if he could
Thank you.
give a little history of how this started and his involvement, and sort of a 50,000 foot down on how we got to today.
Sure. You good?
Yeah, great. Yeah, that's all I wanted to cover as far as budget is concerned.
Well, good evening again, Mayor and Council. Again, my name is Mike Gans. I'm about 40 years into the fire service, and how I came to the city here, helping out the city, was last year I was filling in for the city of Moses Lake as their interim fire administrator, while the city did an executive search looking for a full-time replacement. While I was in that position, somewhere in early summer, the city contacted Prothman and Associates, and who was the consulting firm that had placed me in Moses Lake. And the city of Othello asked if someone could help from Prothman and Associates help with putting together your fire department, because you had a deadline of May 1st of 2026. That was about 10, 11 months out at that point. So Mr. Prothman called me, and that's how I ended up here. I was at the time, I was in the area, and started meeting with the city, and we at that point started to, I served as a transition advisor, which meant I started meeting with city staff, and we started putting together the components of building a plan to put a fire department in service for the city of Othello as of May 1st. That was a really strict timeline. It was 10 months. So what we did is we built a phased-in approach. And some of that document's up there, I know, but it's about 100 pages. But a brief overview is the way we approached that was we started with, basically put it into 5 phases. And the first phase was the first 2 months, and that was an analysis phase. What we did was we brought in some experts, looked at the city's facilities, looked at the city's apparatus. We wanted to make sure that we didn't get to May 1st and have a major apparatus problem that would prevent the city from starting, implementing its own fire department. So we did that in the first 2 months. The second phase was then the acquisition and hiring phase, where we actually went and started recruiting for a fire chief, and we were also looking for an assistant chief, and at that point, starting to talk about the volunteer staff, which was those key components. The other thing we looked at was equipment. We did the analysis of what equipment the city had, and then what equipment they would need to acquire to complete that transition for day one. The third training, or the third phase was training and testing, and that was supposed to begin on January 1st, followed up by the actual activation phase, which would be May 1st, with a little bit of a caveat in the sense that as far as dispatch went, and we worked with PD on the dispatch component there, make sure you had a frequency available, radios that were, compatible, and then portable radios and mobile radios. But the other critical piece to that would have been March 1st, starting to do a mirror or a parallel dispatch so that you didn't just get to May 1st and, we would have done that April 1st, we would have started mirroring, so that we had some history there that everything was in place and dispatches were going out appropriately before we had to actually respond to a call. So that was the plan there, start that, and then the activation May 1st, and then takes a little bit of time, and the final phase was evaluation. Come back, look at what's working, what's not working. And in a nutshell, that's the basics of the plan that we had put together. There was a whole host of other things, all the detail pieces of turnout gear, radios, breathing apparatus, all those major elements that a fire department has to comply with, policies, and those kind of compliance things. So we have a plan, and as of the last time I think I was here before the council was late October, and as I told you, I felt like at that point we were on track. In November, things were paused, and we've been in a pause since November. So here we are today, and we're 2 months away, and I have to tell you that pause is a major thing. Just as I told you in October, I thought we were on track. Today, I have to tell you, I don't think it's feasible or possible to put together, to ramp up and start on May 1st. I just have to be really honest about that because it's just been too long of a pause, and we've missed some of those critical components. So that's kind of the brief overview of what we've been doing over the last year, why we've been doing it. Again, Spencer and I met, we talked about developing the budget, we talked about dispatch things, all those critical component things, but that's where we are in terms of today, starting, putting an Othello Fire Department in place May 1st. So I guess the question would be, yes, sir.
Well, I'll start out with questions because I went through the strategic plan and what I can understand has been completed and what hasn't. So that's going to be my first question. It appears to me phase one is complete. Is that correct?
That would be
correct. And it
correct.
is complete.
Yeah, you've gotten written reports from both the architect and the mechanical review by Steve Towers and Associates.
That was completed on what date?
That was actually completed the end of December, and I believe he gave a report to council, and I believe that was done before January 1st.
So phase one was completed in December?
Well, we started it, and then he came in and worked for those couple months in the fall, and not only did the analysis, but he actually did some work with that took a little extra time because of some record keeping and some issues that we worked with the district to resolve with some of the applicants.
How far behind timeline was phase one?
I think phase one was right on. I was real happy with phase one.
What has been completed on phase two?
We were starting into phase two, and that phase two was the recruitment of some of the personnel. The major piece of that was recruitment of personnel, finishing up on some of those.
Was there any fire gear purchase? Because that was also part of phase 2. Okay, so basically nothing's been done on phase 2 at this point?
I would say we started on phase 2 and then things were put on pause.
I think we understand
Yeah.
what kind of happened in the process.
But just to be totally honest with you, there's no recruitment took place.
Yeah.
No purchases took place for bunker gear or even portable radios. Those things
I
that would have
understand
been
completely.
necessary for January 1 to kick off the training phase. It just was put on pause. Okay, so we have an analysis of the facility, which was great input. And we had a really good analysis of your apparatus and actually some work on your apparatus. And in particular, some record keeping pieces there that will serve the city in the future here, especially for the WSRB rating. So
I do believe also there was some planning regarding facility upgrades from another vendor.
I guess what I'm trying
frame as
to
well.
understand from this is, we're currently 3 months behind on phase 2. That's where we're at. I'm just trying to figure out how the timelines all fit together and where they're supposed to be. And if we get a perfect world, how long will it take to get some of these things? Because we got one thing 3 months behind, we have another thing 5 months behind, and we're 7 months in the other. So I'm trying to figure out are we at a place where we can go, oh, wow, this thing can really accelerate? Or are we in a place that we need to be more realistic about our timeline? Because that really matters about some of our decision-making.
I think you have to be absolutely cognizant of your timelines. We basically put everything on pause, or the city put everything on pause in November.
So basically, the pause put us into this circumstance.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So we put advertising out, what I just saw looking 19 weeks ago on Facebook for an assistant fire chief and a fire chief. So we did start doing some advertising and recruiting. Did we ever get an applicant?
We pulled that before. Our direction was to pull that when we put things on pause.
Right, but it would have been out for a little bit, because there's comments and stuff. So some people saw it,
Sure.
so it was out. So did we have any interest? Did we hear from anybody? Was there anything?
So
There was one interview.
We had some interest in terms of one individual, and that individual could have potentially initially might have been a fire chief candidate, but was more of an assistant fire chief candidate. And there was some interviews in that regard right before the November. So we were working in that respect. Again, Prothman and Associates was engaged to do a national search for the fire chief. That process, it was in the initial stage, started up, but then, was put on hold right before the first of the year.
How long was that recruitment out before that candidate was interested? Do you guys know?
a week.
Local person. Right.
Sorry, I'm trying to look right now through the files, but I think we might have received 2 applications. But I do recall interviewing at least one.
We had, there was one point where we kind of were gearing up to do the Prothman fire chief search, but then we got news that maybe there was an internal candidate. I actually asked the city that if that's the case, and you have a potential local candidate, let's pursue that first, and then if that doesn't, pan out, then we can, gear up again. I think the real important point here is we were starting that phase, but it got put on pause.
So we engaged in a low-hanging fruit recruitment, and we probably would have done more had we not been on the pause.
I wouldn't say low-hanging fruit, that's not a good representation.
Just a locally quick where somebody.
Not even locally quick. I mean, it was,
I think it was a viable candidate or potential viable candidate that would have been really in the city's best interest to pursue first. rather than do a national search and maybe bring someone in from the outside when you maybe had an internal candidate. If you know, that might have been a better fit. That's the way I would describe that.
Sorry, used a corporate term. I apologize.
That's fine.
On May 13th, we did an interview,
May 13th?
May?
13th of 2025.
That doesn't sound right.
Before we even started phase one, we interviewed somebody? Because phase one started in September, right?
I think
August,
when I
oh,
came
July,
on board,
August.
there was.
Not
there
May.
was-
July, August, September was
Yeah,
phase
I think
one.
it was later than that. I think it was
There
actually
was a
more
late in the year
towards
review
early
conducted.
fall, like September, October in there. But I think that there might have been some interest by that individual that had talked to some city staff even before I got here. So that might be what that was.
In your opinion, who, when, and why was it paused?
I think the change, I mean, there was a big change,
He's external to
yeah.
that.
The election caused the pause. Our previous two, or our new mayor and the previous mayor had different ideas about what direction the city should go. The new mayor didn't want us to pursue hiring or purchasing equipment because his direction might have been a bit different than the previous one. And so the previous mayor thought, well, it would be really difficult to hire anyone in this environment where they might be let go in 2 months.
Timing.
It was a terrible environment to hire.
Well,
or to move
timing,
forward.
I was at that podium twice and said May 1st wouldn't work. And you looked at me like I had two heads. And the mayor stood up there, looked at me and said, training's going to start January 1st. That's the timing I was told. And now look where we're at.
I'll go back, I'll say it again, we, respectfully, back in October, we were on track, but there was no room for any pauses. I'd go back to that comment too about, especially doing a national search for a fire chief. If you're out there trying to hire a fire chief and you have a potential change in your mayor and city council, that raises real red flags for candidates. So that is a problem.
I think, Mr. Gantz, what I for myself, what I'm doing in my process of, I'm actually not very interested in relitigating the past at this point. I'm trying to decide and understand a reasonable approach for the future and what expectations we can have. And unfortunately, because of the pause, the track record is not great at the moment. But I understand why it could have been a little bit. I mean, we had an election, that changes things dramatically. And we don't want to waste resources in a situation like that either. So I understand why this would happen, but it is where are all of our options moving forward with the situation we have at hand is my biggest concern.
Okay, I can give you my opinion on that and a little bit of, and I'll give you my opinion as to what the options
Appreciate it.
are, okay? And I'll be pretty candid about it, and if that's okay. Like I said, this phased-in approach with 10 months out was doable, in my opinion, but it was critical time elements. And I don't feel like it's not feasible right now to start up your own
agree.
program May 1st. That's just not,
I think
it's
we
not
understand
possible.
I think we're all there.
Yeah.
Okay? So that leaves, you need to figure out what's the short term, right, is what do you do May 1st? And then what does short term look like? I personally, I feel like your only realistic options here at this point are to negotiate with Adams 5 to do a short-term contract for either 1 year, 2 years, or you could go back to an ongoing type of arrangement. That is that's kind of your options for the short term.
Right.
Long term, all right, long term, you would, long term, you have the option of negotiating a long-term contract situation like you were in, I mean, for 20 years. You could, the other two options that would be open to you are annex into the district or a regional fire authority. Create a regional fire
Right.
authority with the district. Both of those options require a willing partner, right? I mean, so the district would have to be willing to do either one of those.
What about, for those last two?
Yep.
I mean, I understand contracts and how that would work. And we have one that's already been presented to us, so we do have an option.
Okay.
It's not a pretty option, but kind of a punitive option in my opinion, but I'm sure we'll get to that discussion in the future here. Being part of annexation, going through that whole process, I don't think we can get that done in a short amount of time, nor could we do that for fire districts. For me, not being the farthest thing in the world from an expert, what sort of realistic timeline would we have for those two options?
In my opinion, 2 years, right? And part of that, for a regional fire authority, which a lot of agencies are going towards doing, including cities, there's a very specified process in law, in RCW. And it requires a planning committee be established and planning committee of stakeholders. You have to have willing partners, right?
Right.
And but then a planning committee developed, and then there has to be a real facilitated discussion and development of finances, governance, and then a communication plan that goes out to the public, and then the timelines for the ballot language, when you go on the ballot, and that all and public comment periods, right? So it's specified, and it's going to take about 2 years to do that. Okay. The annexation piece has similar components, except it's not spelled out that way. I personally really like the planning committee component, and I would really suggest that you think about doing that for a long-term planning piece to get ready for annexation or the RFA, but put together a stakeholders committee.
Right.
Representatives from the city, representatives from the district, representatives from the community, business leaders. You may want to include the EMS, some of the EMS folks, right? And then, again, I would really suggest that you slow down, take your time, get it right, because you're developing the future for the fire services and determining a fire service model long-term for the city of Othello and the district. The other thing I would say is my experience is this is a tight-knit community, and it's a unique community, especially as the fire service goes. And when I say that, it's, as a previous fire chief, I look at worst-case scenarios. Okay, what if this happens? And I've had some of those incidents, right? Well, where's your help coming from? The closest help that you're going to get is Moses Lake, which is over a half an hour, if they have the availability, and then the Tri-Cities, right? And so these two entities, the city and the district, you really need each other. And so I guess I really want to, we're here at this point, I really want to kind of reiterate that, we had some of those conversations with the district and the chief there, and he and I, we talked about the fact, he said, yes, you need to make sure you're going to take care of each other. And if you're one entity, you're going to be bound a lot better. And I think that's, if you're a city department and a district department still separate, you still got to be able to work together. But if you're one under an annexation or an RFA, it kind of makes that a little bit more seamless. I think you have an opportunity in front of you. And I really would say you got a short-term need. I would focus on that first. And then I would take your time and I would really get as many people involved and plan it out and figure out what's the best for this community. Because it really goes back to we're serving the public, right?
Yep.
That's really, and in my career, there's been many times where I've had to come back to that of, hey, the goal here is we serve the community. And so those are your options. If you could set up your own and continue that process. You could do a long-term contract. You could do the annexation. You could do an RFA. The only other option on a singular level would be you could, and it really doesn't address this too much of what you need, but the law does allow for cities to incorporate into a district. So you create your own fire district within the city limits of Othello. But again, I don't think that really solves your needs.
So, if nobody else, I got one final question.
Last one.
As it relates, I'm trying to be, as it relates to contracts. Because with figuring out timelines for options, we already have an offer in front of us. So no matter what, we have an option. It's not an option we love. How long would it take typically to negotiate? I mean, we've had a 5-year agreement repeating that I read through completely that seemed pretty simple to revamp for some other opportunity. How long do we need to get a contract like that back in place?
I'd say that 2 years. I give it that 2-year window.
Yeah.
I mean, so again, I'd go back to take care of the short term. And then as far as the long term, because you're really talking about is a long-term solution.
Well, I'm looking for long and short. I mean, we already have a short one.
Okay,
So
so the short one's taken care of.
If we're going to start
So
negotiating
then,
for contracts and getting that worked out, how long typically does that take?
1 to 2 years.
Okay, that's
Okay,
helpful.
I mean, and given the,
No, that's helpful.
yeah, I mean, you're not gonna,
You're not going to knock it out.
right.
Okay,
And yeah, I think I'll leave it at that, but,
I appreciate that.
okay.
In your experience, is this a contract fee based on assessed value? Is that fairly common, or are we off the rails here, or?
Okay, so I haven't been privileged to what you've been offered or what those pieces are.
You saw the jump.
Okay, so the jump there, as far as what I understood, was the fact that your previous contract with the district had a formula component into it, right?
Right,
And,
I think his question is that a
is the AV
formula component, is that common?
yeah, it is, although I think in this case, there wasn't the ability that, and where does it stop, right? And I think that's the dilemma there. It all depends on how things are written. If it's just written kind of without thought to, well, what happens if the AV doubles or triples? I think the city, in its right, has should have the ability to say, well, what do we get in return for that? But on the other hand, the district also has to, make up for costs that they're incurring. Fire departments typically don't incur costs at the regular cost of or inflation, right? If inflation typically is around 3%, I know that's been higher than that in years past. But the other thing I'm hearing from other entities, especially cities, is their operating costs are going up a lot, and like more in the 10 to 20% or more avenues. So that's what the district has, and I've experienced that myself as a fire chief, is that, things go up. Your defibrillators, in my case, we had an EMS system. Well, if your defibrillator goes up 30%, when next time you have to, buy one, apparatus, same thing. So That's the dilemma. Is it typical to have AV tied there? Yes, but I think in this case it was sort of open-ended, and so you actually had a jump of, your AV, and I think where the disconnect came is, okay, what are we going to get for that? And you just kind of lost the way there. So
So we're at, to their new levy increase to 90 cents a thousand, and based on our assessed value, that's 1.2 million a year. Is 100,000 a month to contract a fire department for a city our size way off, or is that reasonable?
it depends on level of service and budget, right? And it also depends on, and what ought to be part of this whole process is visioning. Where are you now? What are the demands for service now? Where are they going to be in 5 years? Where are they going to be in 10 years? And then the whole capital, the whole other piece is the capital equipment replacement.
Right.
Are you budgeting for that? And I can tell you that is a very expensive. That in and of itself could probably be 100,000 or more per year. So
I was guessing 200,000 a year.
Well, I mean, they reported it at the last meeting, what their estimated capital and operating budget together was, and it was between 1.1 and 1.3 million. And they said that at the meeting, so I take that until proven otherwise to be what their budget is.
And the city's paying 1.2 of that?
And outside the county's paying almost $1 million. So that's a little bit of an excess. And that was what my concern was when it was presented to us last week, was the fiscal responsibility of that situation. And that's where there might be some opportunity for negotiation.
one of the dilemmas is, obviously the district went out for a lid lift because they were facing
Right.
the loss of the city
Yep.
revenue.
Then, yep,
That's 700
absolutely.
plus thousand, right?
Yep.
So they went out, they got their lid lifted. So they're at 90,000. And I can tell you that, again, being a previous fire chief for a fire district that had a contract city, we got to a point where our citizens were saying, hey, we're subsidizing that other entity, and that's the balance of it. I think you were asking that question about 2 years ago, right? You felt like
Right.
maybe you were subsidizing, and now I think it may be the other way around. And that's where where do you find the balance and the partnership? And that's going to take place.
One thing that we have to consider is that, Othello has grown. The prices the homes have gone way up. I mean, from 80,000, I've seen it go to 200, 240,000. So what's that gonna do to the valuation? It's gonna go up, period. So with the fire department, when they came to us with that number, it was the right thing to do, because it's based on the valuation of the money that's coming in, period. So they were in the right. The only thing is that we didn't want to pay that money because we want to renegotiate that new contract. So they're not in the wrong. You're saying that there's some negotiations going on.
There could be.
Could be. So I'd like to know a little bit more on this startup. On the volunteers, you got 55,000 here, right? So is that per person, or is that in the pool? They draw out of that
Pool.
And that's to cover the stipends. And again, so for instance, if they go out on a fire call, then each volunteer that responded to that call might get 7 points, okay? And then let's say they come in on Tuesday night and they do a training drill. Then they get 5 points for that training drill. So those points accumulate up over the year. And so each one of those 20 has a bank of their points, right? So I may end the year with 500 points. You may end the year with 600 points. All of the points get divided into the budget. And then that determines the value of the point. And so now my 500 points are worth, whatever that value is. It's a stipend. It's not a.
55,000, you're right. So on a what's that? Oh, sorry. So my voice is pretty loud. So you're using 55,000, right? And we're talking about 20 volunteers.
Roughly, yes.
So on an average, I know it's pretty hard to do. On an average, what would that cost for 20 volunteers over a year? On an average?
What costs
$55,000.
$55,000?
Yeah, the pool's pool.
You just take that money and divide it into their
I
points.
know, but what if it goes over?
It doesn't go over.
So that's it.
You're taking $55,000 and how many ever points?
Yeah.
You divide those points into that and that's
So
how
that
much they
number's
get.
firm.
That number is firm, yes. That number is firm.
The budget number is a firm number, not that exact number. I mean, it'll have to fluctuate.
Right.
But, and you're also not going to get, you might forecast for 20 volunteers on the rolls, but you might only get a 30% participation of those volunteers.
Right. And if you're really lucky, maybe you have 23 or 24 volunteers, right? But that one budget line item there is the one that's probably fixed. The others are probably going to have to be a little bit more flexible, right? So if fire hose goes up, you have to buy 1,000 feet of 5-inch fire hose, which is supply line that goes from the engine to the hydrant. And it goes up 30% in a year, but you budget it at a certain amount. You may have to go over, and that's the flexibility. It's just like city budgets. You have to adjust from time to time. It's like running a business.
My concern in general is even, are we going to be able to get volunteers? That's my biggest concern, looking at this. I mean, we're talking about numbers, but when we did that roundtable, they shared with us that they're having trouble getting volunteers. We're the same little community.
It's a nationwide issue being able to get volunteers, not only for
Yeah.
fire service, but for anything.
anything.
Yes, anything,
To
yeah.
get volunteers. So it is a concern for the fire district. It's a concern.
It would be
my
a
opinion,
concern for us,
for the
too.
city.
One of the things I told Mayor Logan was the most critical element in this plan was staffing.
Yeah.
And the ability, and that's why we wanted to address that early on in September and October and going into November.
I mean, the county is well established and they've got this structure and they're struggling. What's going to separate us to bring in a volunteer?
That's why I asked a question about the bonus.
I mean-
But also keep in mind that this year they were able to recently recruit 12 volunteers. So there is a volunteer pool that's out there. You have to consider that's what they just did like a month ago, so.
I would like to comment and say that in conversations with Mayor Logan, and he was open to it, was that if that had gone the way it did in separate departments like that, the city was open to those volunteers being able to respond to both agencies, right? And again, the more you can kind of find those commonalities, even bunker gear, right? If you could share bunker gear, then each department doesn't have to have 2 sets. They could, but then you're talking about, well, why are we separate departments?
Yeah,
Why
yeah.
aren't we,
And what do we-
working together? And yes,
Those are things down the road.
yeah.
What I'm seeing from this plan is that we are a full 6 months minimum from being able to do our own thing if we choose to do that. Because you've got 3 months scheduled for phase 2, which is recruiting and hiring, which I think is also fairly optimistic. And then 3 months to train all of those people before we could even go live with our own department. Is that reasonable, given your phased plan?
Yeah.
It was a
this is-
relatively, I understand it's a relatively accelerated phased
That's
plan
where we're
Right.
to begin with.
It was,
But I'm saying, at a minimum, we would need a full 6 months.
at a minimum, right? You have a facility and you have apparatus, but
And the things that were done in phase 1 are things that benefit us going forward no matter what we do, right? Looking at the building and looking at our trucks and those repairs and things. Like, that's not wasted money and that's not wasted effort, at least.
Yeah, not at all.
In that respect, to put everyone on a level playing field is where we stand and what are their critical needs and concerns of the city in regards to equipment, and how does it benefit not only the city, but the fire district to ensure that we're providing the right equipment.
I guess 2 things there. One, personnel are going to be the biggest ones, right? Because you're competing for the same volunteers that serve the community, many of who are city residents, And they want to serve both communities. Their passion is to serve the community. It's not to kind of get in the middle of, this. Yeah, and the second thing is again, I would just reiterate, there's an opportunity here if you guys can find a way to work with the district to really come out the other side with a unified department that serves the community.
That's the ideal.
Yeah.
And I would build on his point that as a volunteer, we share bunkers. We have one set of bunkers. We don't have city or county bunkers, but we do have city and county trucks. So as a volunteer, we show up and we have to decide what truck we're going to take to an incident. And so, for example, is Bob's Corner city or county?
County.
To Garrett's Park, if there's a car fire there, that's a city truck,
Right.
but if it's out on Taylor Road, it's a county truck. Sorry. Thank you. As a volunteer, we don't care. We're just out there to put the wet stuff on the red stuff, they say.
Is that-
But we expect our officers to tell us which truck to take out there.
Is that what it says in the contract? Because I read that with the past contract, that was up to the administrator to make that decision on utilization of assets. I think it was number 23 point, if I remember that number, somewhere in the 20s was where that was. So I'm surprised to hear that's how it was before, Mark, on how things were done.
As far as
or-
I know, that's the way it's been since,
So
1980.
is that the case? We only use city assets on the city, or?
No.
The way the contract read, it didn't state it that way.
Automatic mutual aid, it's called.
Right.
If the plant's on fire and our two pumpers aren't covering it, the county, and vice versa.
I think that's one of the economies of scale that's being missed right now.
Exactly.
That there is a duplication of apparatus. And even in the 96-page report that ESCI did for the district, I think they alluded to that as well. That, you're not getting the full benefit of this joint venture. And apparatus are expensive, right? So there could be a lot better utilization of between apparatus between the two districts. That would be a cost savings. You do have some apparatus that are going to need to be replaced.
Right.
Your reserve ladder truck is one of those, right? So that's got to be some thought process moving forward. So,
But the volunteers are, as he stated, are serving the community. So that's why, we just want to help. And this,
it makes it more confusing, right? I mean, they should fire a pumper, a brush truck, a tender. That's really what you should be coming in and just, that's the piece of equipment we need, not if it's yellow or if it's red, so.
All right, any other questions from council or Mr. Gantz?
Got nothing.
Thank you, sir. Anything else from the council regarding this special meeting?
Overall, I think the county has made the offer that Mr. Dorrow refers to for extending the contract in this short term. We've kind of made a counteroffer, and now I think it's incumbent on them to come back to us. Are we on the same page there?
I don't think we,
We have not made a I don't think it's.
No.
We have not made a counteroffer.
We
Would that be fair to say, Spencer? We talked about options, but we didn't get down to the nitty-gritty. That's for sure.
In our last special meeting, you mean? Yeah, we talked about things. I don't know if that qualifies as this.
So to your knowledge,
count?
the mayor is not present and yourself have not generated a response to the fire district's proposal,
We've asked for another meeting.
correct?
Like, we don't have a paper offer.
Right.
A response to their proposal. We do not have that generated yet.
Correct.
Okay.
We have an invite, however.
Get one, right?
When,
So not that I'm
No.
aware of.
Last I understood, we were gonna write up the contract and do the 1-year thing. And then the ball was just left there in our court to write the contract up and then send it to them and they would review it. But we didn't do anything after that, correct?
So we put together just kind of notes of that last meeting and gave those to them so they could mull over those in their next meeting.
But we had a very extensive conversation. I want to be very clear. The only thing that has been offered is for us to attend and discuss this further in the March 10th meeting. That's the only thing that I'm aware of. Is that correct, Spencer?
So
That's all I'm aware of.
my recall from our meeting last Thursday was that we discussed the 89.9 cents, and we discussed 25 cents of that being put into a special account.
That was
And their
discussed.
ask was that we put something on paper and present it to them.
Yeah, that's
Now,
how
I know you've
remember
done talking points, which was not really a contract, and who defines something on paper and send it to them? I know those elements were on those talking points that you did send over there, but I don't know.
Remember it too.
I don't know, well, it's all recorded, so. I don't know who defines what, put something on paper and send it to us. And you know, I don't know who defines that. My understanding from that was that they were kind of expecting us to put an offer on paper and send it to them. That was my understanding. I don't know that it was explicitly said in those words.
But the offer exists exactly how you explained it, though.
Right.
But moving forward, that's something the city administrator, the mayor, and legal counsel would have to get together to draft a contract
Yes.
response.
But that's what was
to the fire
asked of
district.
us last.
And then at the end of last week, Councilmember Doro started having a whole lot more conversations, which may very well be super helpful, but also may have muddied up some of what was discussed on Thursday, where we sort of had a plan moving forward,
And I know
which
there's,
is why we've asked for another meeting.
Well, I think that first contract is the most important one, because that gives us a year to negotiate.
right, and that's
Yeah.
where,
That's where-
when Mayor Johnson comes back next week, I'm sure he'll meet with Spencer. They'll hammer something out, get with legal counsel, and move this ball forward. But these meetings that we're having, in my opinion, are here to, one, get the entire council up to speed,
speed,
knowledge, some
absolutely.
history, get you to answer your questions, get your questions answered by some smart people so that you can make a more informed decision moving forward.
And full clarification, I guess I didn't make it on Monday, so I'll do it again. I didn't go to discuss a contract in the least, and I think it would be pretty difficult to have a contract ready that quickly with all the bells and whistles on it. We were invited to have a discussion about possibilities. And in that time, that wasn't our plan at that time. They did ask us for talking points, which I happened to be available for. Spencer asked me to come and help with. And while that happened, we were invited to come and continue the conversation about the talking points that they had asked for. I had a discussion with the mayor, who was not available, who was supposed to be there, but since he wasn't, we had a great conversation about what he would want discussed. And we talked about what was talked about Thursday night, what sort of process would need to be put in place if that was at all possible. And they were still figuring out if that was still possible for them on their side. But as that went on, the discussion went into a different direction, into a different opportunity. And that's what I presented on Monday, was we had one opportunity of a contract that was put in front of us. And we had the other opportunity of, well, we got 60 days, let's start our fire department. That's what our two opportunities were as of Thursday night. As of Friday, there may be a different one that would like to be continued further. And the process that we all want to go forward with is what we need to decide. Because you're right, it needs to be more concrete.
We have a major disconnect, because
Yeah.
I agree with my side of the table. In fact, I called it a counteroffer. I said, for parity, we need, you guys get so much from the county and buy capital equipment with that. and you get so much from the city, and do not buy capital equipment with that. So for parity, I called it a counteroffer. You have to set aside this amount of money for capital equipment for the city.
I responded
And as
with,
of Friday
if you
when
guys
we
write
met,
it
they
up,
had not
we'll
had
look
that
at it.
Correct, I
Yes.
agree with you.
And as of Friday, they were not able to get legal consultation to see if they could even do that.
Right, and what we're saying is that's where we are, is that that's what should be the next move, is to move forward with that on the legal side of it, so that we have a year to look at the other options we just talked about.
Well, and I guess my point would be that the onus is on us, because the ask was that we put something on
Correct.
paper and send it back, because it was our counter offer in that
Yeah.
conversation.
Most important.
And I
Yes.
think I'd like to circle back to one other thing that Mr. Gans brought to us tonight, and that is, it is absolutely impossible to start our own department in 60 days. So that is not an option.
Nothing
I
is an
think,
option in
I
60
think
days.
he also was pretty clear with us multiple times through multiple different questions that working together with the county in an amicable way, whichever way we get there and whatever way we get to that endpoint, is what's going to benefit our citizens the most. Not more division and more chaos. So however we solve this problem has to be in a way that that relationship is repaired and not fractured further.
I think we agreed to their offer. We'll pay you 90 cents a thousand. However, for parity, you can't expect the city to go off book to buy their equipment when the county doesn't. They use that pool of money to buy their equipment.
For the next year.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely, yeah. All you have is you have the current contract, it's wrote out, and write in whatever section the finance is, and you put that in the finance section. And if they don't know how to earmark money, I can open an account at SDCU and we'll put that money in an account for them. You know, it's not brain surgery here.
So when you get together the 10th, going on our own, we're not concrete yet, right? So that's what I said the last time. So if you're going to get together the 10th, are you going to come with some kind of an agreement? Is it going to be 65 cents, 75 cents, 85 cents?
It'll be the city administrator and the mayor bringing that to the council.
Okay, yeah. Okay, when
we're putting the
what
cart
I'm
before the
saying,
horse.
no, we're not. Because what I'm saying, before we start negotiating or starting our own, we need to know what their budget is and what they can afford to give us.
And some of those
If they do not
discussions-
give us, we don't have numbers, we don't
Discussions
have
we need to
anything.
have will happen in executive session.
But he said they're gonna get together to negotiate, right?
Discussions that we need to have will happen in executive session for contract negotiation with our legal counsel. So as much as we want to move forward right now, we need to pause and go, what's the proper way to do this? And making a decision tonight is not gonna happen.
Oh, no, we're not making a decision.
No.
No. But you know what I'm trying to say? If they're
Understand
gonna
that.
get together, and you just said a little bit, when you talked last week, you kind of worked some numbers out, right? Okay, that's what I'm getting at, right?
We
So if
talked
they
about
have an idea of what
possibilities.
they can afford, what they can pay, we need to know that number, so we can keep going
Well, they
forward.
told us that
with them
number.
or with this.
They told us that number. They told us Thursday night, it's between 1.1 million and 1.3. And that was said again when we talked Friday.
Yes, but you just told us that you guys were negotiating a different number.
What do you mean?
Not negotiating, they're just discussions.
Well, you weren't negotiating, you thought you were coming down to some kind of agreement.
I questioned the fiscal responsibility and the future of what they wanted to accomplish and the opportunities that could happen if things were done differently. That's why it's set up for the 10th. It's not a numbers. I mean, let me tell you something. It was about 2 hours of hearing how angry everyone was at each other that we had to fix first. And we got far from it, but we got a lot closer to addressing that, to where we could maybe even have that sort of conversation. All this stuff is a process.
So Spencer, can you advise the mayor where we are and see what you can bring to the table the next scheduled council meeting? regarding this?
Like as far as offer a paper,
If possible.
yeah, yeah.
With legal counsel, have legal counsel put on the line so that we can go in executive session and have a discussion regarding
Yeah.
potential litigation.
So
On the
our next
9th?
meeting, well, our next council meeting is on the 9th.
Which
So
would be
it's the day
before we
before.
even meet with them. That'll work out.
Sorry?
We have information. We can, it's possible to generate something to send back to the fire district after that meeting. And once the mayor's been advised of everything that's going on so
So
far.
then their next meeting is the day after. Is,
Maybe the fire committee.
Unless they meet with us next week.
yeah.
Maybe
But
the
does
fire
that
committee
give
meets.
Spencer and the mayor enough time to do what they need to
It gives
do?
us more information to give to them, right, potentially, I mean, because we do have this one offer that we've already made to them that they're willing to consider. So.
That needs to get done.
It does need to get done. And the other thing is that I've heard multiple different things where the contract that they brought, proposal that they brought to us was for an entire year. Not just the next 8 months of this year, it was for an entire year.
Yes.
And given that we would need a minimum of 6 months to do our own thing, I think a year is much more reasonable than just trying to finish out 2026.
Yeah.
Doing
Questioned
something for
that.
the next
During that
8
meeting, I did
months.
question that.
They told us
is
8
gonna
months,
put
they
us
were gonna be
right back
gracious,
into
give
the
us 12 'cause
same
he wasn't gonna do
cramped
it.
timeframe, and then we have to figure out, like, and then we're having special meetings every week again to try and figure out what we're gonna do by the end of this year. What they brought to us was for an entire 12 months, which takes us to the
It says
end.
8 months.
They said
On
that
paper, it says 8 months.
when we countered, they said that they would do it for a year. So when we wrote it up, to write it up for a year.
No, it says effective May 1, 2026 through April 30, 2027. That is an entire year, sir.
All right, so we're not gonna get this all resolved.
You might want to read the bottom here, December.
I'm just saying, it says a year on
Yeah,
it.
this needs to get resolved because that needs to get done.
Not gonna get resolved tonight.
No.
No, but is it a year? Is it the end of the year? Or is it till
But we
May?
can resolve if we indeed
Spencer,
made a
do the
legitimate
minutes
counteroffer
say
that we should have presented to
from
them
that special
to
meeting?
facilitate getting this
If-
thing done by May 1st.
About 8 months, but they had said that they would do the
I
contract for a
think we
year.
have.
Do we have it anywhere?
Just to keep the conversation going.
There's some legal things that need to occur to generate
Yes.
a
Yeah.
counter proposal. So we are not done tonight,
No.
unfortunately. Any other discussion?
I wonder if that's a reasonable timeline for us to have discussion with our attorney on the line on our meeting on the 9th, and then have something that would be sent to the fire district
Go
that
over to the fire committee.
later that
Or they
night
can
or
even review it.
the 10th? Yeah.
You guys make the decision.
Push it to
The
the,
legal part, do it can you guys do anything any sooner?
Mayor Pro Tem Barnes?
So yeah, we can do that.
I would like to make the suggestion that we send this to the fire committee next week to figure out where that would be and work with the mayor to make that proposal that we could review on the 9th to be presented on the 10th.
Well, that's, I think, what he was trying to say. I think Spencer was trying to say that.
Right, so we can do that, and we can work.
And then we wouldn't need to
with
go
the
into
attorneys.
executive council to discuss any of that.
well, we still would have to do that.
Probably.
for the
But at least we
contract.
can announce it.
Committee with the attorney next week.
Next week,
We
okay,
could do that. I assume we could do that next week.
okay.
I think that's your best with timelines.
Can you make that happen? Okay.
I have to make sure, we have schedules and things, but, and I'm not sure what the attorney's availability will be.
Right.
Are there, so from the fire committee, those of you that are here, do you have days, afternoons that are better than others?
Any day next week. Lunch works better.
Sorry, what works better?
Any day next week.
Okay, noon.
Lunch works better,
Is
but if
best.
it's at
After
6,
3:30.
it works good.
After 3:30.
Okay. I could accommodate
Found
whatever
Monday and
time.
Tuesday, but I'm not working next week otherwise, so I can do any time, any day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Thursday, Friday. Anytime.
Right, and so you're available. So we could use Kelly as the alternate for you, Mark?
If I know when we're gonna have it, I can try to get off. But just, the better would be after 3:30.
Hours are best.
I'm gonna say, find out from the attorney when she's available.
Right, I know, but we need to start somewhere.
Anytime, I'm available, open.
Okay, anytime. And so your two schedules, is one or the other?
Mine, whenever.
Oh,
What I'm
yours,
saying, if you can't make it at noon, Kelly,
An alternate?
Councilman Camp and our pro temp,
Keep thinking.
Daryl, if they can make it at noon, why don't we do it at noon? If you don't mind dropping that off.
Well, I might be able to make it at noon, but I need to know when it is so I can tell them in advance.
okay. So let's shoot for, well, there's Wednesday, let's shoot for Wednesday or Thursday at noon. And I'll shoot that to the attorney and see what her availability is.
Well, he needs
Thursday, Friday.
Thursday or Friday.
Thursday, Friday for me.
You have to, okay, so Thursday.
Wednesday, I'm
Let's-
obligated.
Let's see Thursday at
Well,
noon.
if only Wednesday, then I can fill in Wednesday for you. If
Yeah,
if that's
depending
the
on when
only
the
day the
attorney's
attorney
available.
can do it, then we'll figure it out.
Noon as a second.
Any other discussion regarding this issue? No words being said? Not the special meeting. With that being said, close meeting at 7:26 PM.